Hello, my friends. I'm thrilled to be meeting with you again. I'm Menopause Taylor, and my job is to help you tailor your menopause management to your needs, both short-term and long-term. And the only way you can do that is to make sure you aren't oblivious to the obvious aspects of menopause. I find that so many women focus on the wrong things. They let minor or temporary issues get in the way of their overall long-term goals. So the name of this video is Don't Be Oblivious to the Obvious Aspects of Menopause. And what I'll do is present some examples of things that represent being oblivious to the obvious aspects of menopause. Hopefully you won't find yourself in any of these situations. But even if you yourself aren't oblivious to an obvious aspect of menopause, I can assure you that you know someone who is. So I'll present various situations and explain why each one represents being oblivious to an obvious aspect of menopause. Okay. The first indication that you are oblivious is thinking that you can avoid menopause with a healthy diet and lifestyle. This is common among health nuts and gym rats. They have a very healthy lifestyle, and it serves to help them avoid many diseases. It gives them a sense of control over their lives, so they assume that they can use it to avoid menopause. It doesn't work that way. That healthy lifestyle is good for many things, and by all means, don't discontinue it. But don't be oblivious to its limitations. Menopause is not a disease. It's as certain as puberty. You cannot avoid it no matter what you do, short of dying first. Food is food, exercise is exercise, and hormones are hormones. Your food and exercise cannot substitute for the absence of hormones. So don't be oblivious to the obvious truth that you cannot avoid menopause with a healthy diet and lifestyle. Now, closely associated with that area of obliviousness is thinking you can avoid menopause with vitamins and minerals. This one is common among women who prefer alternative and complementary medicine. Just as you can't control hormones with diet and exercise, you can't do it with just vitamins and minerals either. Vitamins and minerals can serve many purposes, but controlling your menopause all by themselves is not one of them. So what about herbs? The same thing is true. I've taught you that phytoestrogens are extremely weak compared to the hormones your body produces. You cannot expect them to substitute for strong human hormones. Herbs can reduce some of your symptoms of menopause, but they can't alleviate them completely. And they're not adequate for preventing diseases associated with menopause. So the first level of being oblivious to the obvious aspects of menopause is thinking that you can avoid it. Menopause is going to happen no matter what. There's nothing you can do to avoid it, period. Okay, the second indication that you're oblivious is thinking that you're lucky if you don't have hot flashes. Now, this one may surprise you. Of course, you're a lot more comfortable in the short term if you don't have hot flashes, but the oblivious thing is thinking that hot flashes are all there is to menopause. Many women who don't have hot flashes are actually worse off in the long term than those who do. Why? Because their absence of hot flashes makes them lackadaisical. They never seek any professional help for their menopause. And because they never do anything to address hot flashes, they never discover that menopause is about a lot more than just hot flashes. They never learn about all the other symptoms of menopause, and they never learn about the diseases associated with menopause. So years after feeling lucky for not having hot flashes, they feel very unlucky when they have heart attacks, osteoporosis, and Alzheimer's disease. The third thing that makes you oblivious to the obvious aspects of menopause is focusing more on perimenopause than on postmenopause. As you know from my videos, perimenopause is a temporary state of estrogen dominance, but post-menopause is a permanent state of estrogen deficiency. If you focus on perimenopause as all there is, you remain oblivious to the fact that the symptoms and diseases of menopause are due to estrogen deficiency, not estrogen excess. And that one mistake can mess things up for the rest of your life. This situation is most common for women who fall for all the marketing of progesterone during perimenopause. Part of that marketing is brainwashing you into believing that progesterone is your friend while estrogen is your enemy. Progesterone is useful during perimenopause, but not postmenopause. And the fourth thing that makes you oblivious to the obvious aspects of menopause is failing to realize that postmenopause is a state of estrogen deficiency rather than one of estrogen excess. Now, this falls in line with the previous item. Both are about understanding the sequence of events during peri and postmenopause. Perimenopause is loss of progesterone. Postmenopause is loss of estrogen. Estrogen is your female hormone. Progesterone is the baby's hormone. You cannot fix your estrogen deficiency with progesterone. The fifth thing that shows you're oblivious is stopping HRT for insignificant reasons at the expense of forfeiting the benefits. So let's say you decide to take HRT for the long-term benefits of lowering your risks for heart attack, osteoporosis, and Alzheimer's. But 3 weeks after starting it, you stop because you have breast pain. That makes no sense. Your breasts have always responded to hormones. Why would their response to HRT be any different? You had breast pain before every period. You had breast pain at the beginning of every pregnancy. You probably had breast pain if you ever used birth control pills. So why would you freak out for breast pain upon starting HRT? Or let's say you have vaginal bleeding a few days after starting HRT. Once again, your uterus has always responded to hormones. Estrogen made the lining in your uterus thicken. Progesterone made that lining shed. Why would it be any different when you first start taking HRT? It takes a little time for your body to get used to having hormones on board again. But then it all settles down. If you stop taking HRT after a few days or a few weeks when the very reason you started taking it was for the long-term benefits, you are being oblivious to the obvious aspects of HRT. So don't forfeit your long-term benefits for short-term inconveniences. Here's another one, number 6. You're oblivious to the obvious aspects of menopause if you blame weight gain on HRT rather than on menopause itself. Menopause slows down your metabolism. Slowing of your metabolism causes weight gain. You naturally gain weight with puberty, pregnancy, and menopause. The weight gain of all three is related to changes in your sex hormones. Why would you blame weight gain on HRT? Blame it on menopause itself, not HRT. The next thing that indicates being oblivious to the obvious aspects of menopause is fearing HRT more than birth control. As I taught you in videos 41, 42, and 43, birth control contains much higher dosages of hormones than HRT does. So if you're afraid of hormones, why would you fear a lower dosage of hormones over a higher dosage of hormones? Do you see how that just doesn't make sense? It's backward. The 8th area of being oblivious to the obvious aspects of menopause has to do with the risk of blood clots. All hormones carry some risk of causing blood clots. Considering the risk of blood clots with HRT isn't what constitutes being oblivious. It's oblivious to fail to put it into perspective. So I just told you that hormonal birth control is higher in dosage than HRT. But most women fear blood clots from HRT more than they fear them from birth control. And guess what carries the highest risk of blood clots? Pregnancy! And look at how many women take that risk. So it's all about putting things into perspective and not being oblivious to the differences in the levels of risk for blood clots. The biggest risk is pregnancy, the second is hormonal birth control, and the third is HRT. Number 9 is being oblivious to the fact that vaginal dryness and itching really means that your vagina is shrinking, literally. I explained this in great detail in video 142. If you haven't watched it, please do. Once again, it's understanding the difference between short-term symptoms and long-term effects. If you only focus on the short-term symptoms and don't do something that can actually prevent vaginal shrinking, you are being oblivious to this obvious aspect of menopause. The 10th area of being oblivious to the obvious aspects of menopause is one of the most common. It's fearing breast cancer more than a heart attack. Now, this is a mistake that can actually kill you. Here are the statistics. 1 out of 3 women will have a heart attack. 1 out of 7 will have breast cancer. 1 out of 2 women will die from a heart attack. 1 out of 29 will die from breast cancer. Your risk of dying from a heart attack is 8 times greater than your risk of dying from breast cancer. Despite all these statistics blatantly indicating that you should focus more on a heart attack than breast cancer, most women do just the opposite. Okay, here's another one. It's oblivious if you don't recognize the obvious fact that doing your self-breast exam can save your life. I can't tell you how many times I've heard women say, I don't do my self-breast exam because I don't want to find anything. It's just the opposite. You should do your self-breast exam so that you will find something, because if you find it, you'll catch it early when it's curable. If you don't do your self-breast exam, you won't find it early, and that can result in finding it so late that it kills you. So don't be oblivious and get this backward. In the same context, there's the oblivious assumption that mammograms cause breast cancer. They don't cause it. They find it early. Assigning cause to the very thing that can prevent you from dying from breast cancer is totally goofy. The 2 tools you have to diagnose breast cancer early are your self-breast exams and mammograms. And women have created illogical reasons to avoid both of them. That's being oblivious to the obvious fact that you put yourself at greater risk of dying from breast cancer if you skip either one of them. And another thing, it baffles me that women fear breast cancer more than anything, yet they sabotage their opportunity to find it early and cure it by avoiding these 2 things. And here's number 12. Blaming HRT for causing breast cancer when you've only taken it for a few months constitutes being oblivious. You know, people love to blame their problems on something or someone other than themselves. Over and over I hear women say, I started taking HRT and I was diagnosed with breast cancer 2 months later. This is being completely oblivious to how cancer develops. Every cancer begins as just one single cell that goes crazy. It divides into 2 cells, and those 2 cells divide into 4 cells, and so on until it's large enough to diagnose as a cancer. But this takes time. It takes about 7 years for a breast cancer to grow from a single cell to the size of a small grape. There is no way that a few months of HRT can cause breast cancer. And there's no evidence that HRT causes breast cancer at all. So this is an area of massive degrees of obliviousness. And one final area of being oblivious to the obvious aspects of menopause. It's about your family history. If you focus more on your family history than you do on your own life and your own habits, you are being oblivious. I encounter women who will go on and on telling me all about their mother, what their mother's periods were like, when their mother went through menopause, how their mother responded to HRT, all the diseases their mother had. The problem is that you are not your mother. Your mother's menopause is not your menopause. And that same thing goes for your sister and grandmother and all your other relatives. You are you. Focus on you. If you don't, you are being oblivious to the obvious aspects of menopause. So there you have them, 14 areas in which you might be oblivious to the obvious aspects of menopause. Here's a list of all 14. 1, you can't avoid menopause using diet, exercise, vitamins, minerals, or herbs. 2, you aren't lucky if you don't have hot flashes. 3, perimenopause is not as important as postmenopause. 4, postmenopause is due to estrogen deficiency, not estrogen excess, and you can't fix estrogen deficiency with progesterone. 5, if you stop HRT because of a short-term effect, you lose the long-term benefits. 6, weight gain at menopause is due to menopause itself, not HRT. 7, don't fear HRT more than you fear birth control pills. They're lower in dosage. Number 8, pregnancy and hormonal birth control carry more risk of a blood clot than HRT. Number 9, vaginal dryness and itching are a sign of vaginal shrinkage. Number 10, heart attacks are more likely and more deadly than breast cancer. 11, failing to find something early on your self-breast exam should be more worrisome than finding something. 12, mammograms find breast cancer early. They don't cause it. 13, HRT cannot cause sudden breast cancer. And 14, your family history is not as important as your own personal history. So, were there any areas where you've been oblivious? If so, what were they? Do you feel like the facts are more obvious now? My goal is to save you from fearing or worrying about the wrong things. If you want to address any of these things more deeply, schedule a one-on-one consultation with me. I'll help you tailor all the facts to you specifically. You just go to menopausetailor.me to schedule a session. And in the meantime, follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and subscribe to my channel. And I will see you in a week. Bye.